Well, I wasn't trying to have a shark fin, but I guess that's just how we're gonna do this thing. Hey guys, welcome to another exciting, Jesus Christ, my fucking hair. Today we're talking about Jaws. Yeah, I finally did it. I bought a 4K, God damn it. I bought a 4K UHD player, and I think it's pretty okay. I'm not gonna say that I am like... I'm on board the 4K UHD train. I get it. I've watched the movie in 4K. It looks fucking dope as hell. There's a ton more depth. A lot of scenes are even clearer just because, just by virtue of having more coverage on your screen, just by by having more pixels dedicated to individual elements, you get a clearer image. That's just, science. And it works really well. I will definitely watch this 4K UHD more. I will definitely seek out more 4K UHD discs. I bought the fucking player. I'm probably only going to purchase stuff that was specifically transferred in 4K. If it was upped from like a 2K transfer to 4K, I'm not going to do that. And the other side of that is I don't need 4K. I think that, I could watch the Blu-ray, which the Blu-ray that comes in this is the Blu-ray that came out a few years ago. It's the same restoration, which is fine because it's a beautiful restoration. It's one of the best restorations I've ever seen for a film. A lot of money was put into this. A lot of professionals at Universal who knew what they were doing. Like, this was an amazing undertaking, and truly, I am astonished by how good this film looks. If I didn't know that it was shot in the 70s, if I was, didn't know who any of these people were, had no idea what Jaws was, and I watched this transfer today, I would assume it was just a period movie shot recently, because it is that good looking, beautiful. So that being said, if you don't own the Blu-ray, this is a great purchase. As I said, it comes, don't need that, with the Blu-ray. It's the exact same thing. I don't think there's any difference. I'm pretty sure they just took a bunch of the Blu-rays they had lying around from that release, smacked them on in here, along with the 4K UHD disc, and there you go. You have the product. This also comes with a really dope little booklet, which just, look at how dank that is. I guess I could get B-roll of this, but who needs that? Who needs me to do B-roll when you can just have me flipping it haphazardly on camera? It's a good little, has some storyboards, has the Indianapolis monologue script, some posters from around the world, just some general essay stuff. It's a booklet, but it's a nice booklet. I like it. It's not going to, replace the Jaws log or anything, but it's, quality stuff. So this is a great package. The slipcase is good. It is not perfect. It's got a little dinged up on the spine here, but not in like any way you could really tell offhand. If you look at it from a distance, you can't really see, but it is a little dinged up. So it's not the most resilient case in the world, but it's perfectly fine. Has this little lenticular, I'm eating my title, look at me, I'm eating my title, I'm Bruce the Shark, this is my movie. So, overall, good stuff. It's a beautiful, I think, limited edition. I don't really care. And has this very minimalist back that I really enjoy. I just really like it. I think this is a great release. The special features are pretty simple. It's all the same as the Blu-ray, as I said. So you get the making of Jaws, which is a 2-hour documentary from, I didn't write this down, the 90s. It was in the 90s. And it was just a making of documentary about the film and a little bit of the legacy up to that point, but mostly just, the process of making it, how much of a pain in the ass it was. It's one of the best making of documentaries I've ever seen. I hadn't watched this in a lot of years, and I rewatched the entire thing after watching the film, and it works really well. There's this weird bit where like a lot of the interview footage looks very kind of overly saturated and contrasty, very red. All the skin tones are really off. But then shortly thereafter, it just like maybe 45 minutes, an hour in, it all goes away and it's all fine. I don't know if that was in the original version or not, but it's kind of weird that that's the case. It seems like there should be footage. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's still a great documentary despite any flaws it might have. I highly recommend that. Honestly, to get the UHD, the Blu-ray, and that making of documentary, worth the purchase right there. I would actually say just being able to future-proof yourself and getting the documentary. If you don't own the Blu-ray already, amazing. Just get it. It's great. You also get The Shark is Still Working, which is a documentary from 2007. That one's an hour, 41 minutes, and it is also really good. It's oddly enough more dated than the other documentary. It feels very 2007. It's the legacy of Jaws, so it's going more into, you know, how it kind of had an effect on culture. Goes into very specific elements like the simplicity of the theme, the story behind the Indianapolis speech, merchandising, stuff like that, and is also really good. I wouldn't say it's as good as The Making of Jaws, but it's right up there. They're both very, very good documentaries that you can go back to time and time again and enjoy yourself. So a lot like the movie, honestly. It really is great that two of the best documentaries you can watch on the making and legacy of a great film are about one of the greatest films with the most infinite rewatchability of all time. So great stuff. You also get deleted scenes, a trailer, some behind-the-scenes footage, stuff like that. All of it, again, is on the Blu-ray disc. It's nothing new. It's all ported over, so don't expect anything brand new. I would have liked maybe a commentary. I always love my commentaries. I feel like, you know, I know Spielberg's busy, but he could take 2 fucking hours to sit down in front of a microphone. And if not him, I mean, there's plenty of people who could do fucking commentaries. I don't know why these big studios can't be bothered to do commentaries, but here we are. Now, as for the movie itself, I would like to go ahead and delve into the second portion of this video. I know there's not a whole lot as far as reviewing this release. It's really very simple. It's beautiful. It is a flawless transfer. I don't have any criticisms other than I would like a commentary, and that's a criticism for every single release I own that does not have a commentary. So, they don't need to make a more special edition of this. They might at some point. I don't know. Maybe like for the 50th anniversary or something, but this is perfect. This is a borderline perfect movie. With a borderline perfect release, if only because the transfer is just so good. I am so happy to have this in my collection. I'm so happy that I upgraded to 4K UHD. Again, I don't think it's entirely necessary. I don't think it adds enough quality to make me regret any of my previous Blu-ray purchases. I'm glad that that's the case as well, because that would really suck if I watched one 4K UHD movie and I was like, well, these are all going in the bin. So good stuff. Let's talk ranking. Yes, sir. My wife had never seen Jaws. I don't know how this happened. I don't know why I married her without, getting this information first. I feel like a buffoon. I realized I was catfished into this marriage, not knowing that she had never seen Jaws, and so I showed her Jaws, and she loved it. Lucky her. Her first time watching Jaws was this amazing, immaculate 4K restoration, and she recognized it for the perfect movie that it is, and so we decided to watch the rest of the films. We just got HBO Max. All the movies are on there. Let's watch the movies. So we watched them all, and we had some opinions, and I utilized a bit of her opinion, a little bit of my opinion, and came up with a ranking of the Jaws franchise. So let's dig in. We're going to do best to worst, because I feel like my worst is a surprise. The best is not a surprise at all. The best is, at number 1, Jaws. It's Jaws. It basically created the term blockbuster. It's the film that launched one of the biggest careers in film directing. It is taught in film schools across the world. It spawned so many glorious ripoffs. If you ranked a movie just for how many great ripoffs it is responsible for, Jaws it could be a piece of shit and it would still rank highly just for that reason. But it's not. It's a glorious piece of filmmaking. It is tense. The whole film, it feels like now that I'm a parent, it feels like a 2-hour heart attack. It is so wild. You get so emotional when you see when Mrs. Kinter is walking towards the beach looking for her son. It's heartbreaking. And then later on, when she confronts Chief Brody and she tells him that he's the reason her son is dead, and then you see the look on his face and Roy Scheider's acting, for that matter. in that scene. You see the look on his face that he knows that he's responsible. You know, and I think it's the mayor that tells him that it's not his fault. Before he even says anything, you know, he knows in the depths of his soul that he is personally responsible for the death of this young boy, and that this woman will never recover. And in that moment, he has formed a mission for himself to kill this shark. And from that point on, it is just, even in the smallest scenes, it's like a nonstop thrill ride. It holds so much emotional impact now, so much more than it ever did when I was a child. And when I was a child, of course, it freaked me out because shark in the water. And I lived near the beach most of my life. I grew up in Florida. Actually, until I was 8 years old, I lived in Pensacola, which is just outside of Navarro Beach, where the sequel shot a lot of its scenes. We'll get to that in a second. You know, it's honestly just a perfectly crafted film. The Indianapolis speech that Quint gives is some of the best acting you'll ever see in a film, period. It's definitely one of the best monologues, if not the best. The final moment, the smile you son of a bitch moment, is like hair-raisingly good. Just not only in the writing, not only in Roy Scheider's delivery, but just the editing of the scene, how it's all pieced together. Does it make any sense that he's able to blow up that tank in the shark's mouth? No, but we don't care. And that's important. All these movies have very illogical elements to them, and a lot of them feel illogical, but all the illogical elements here, all the bullshit about sharks, all the bullshit about how these tanks of compressed air work, doesn't matter. Because it's amazing, and it's perfectly written and directed in such a way that you're made to not care about that because you're so in with these characters. You know, you have these three characters who come together to face an unstoppable evil. You know, I realize the shark is just doing its natural thing, but for the sake, you know, the movie gets across that it is basically an evil, hyper-intelligent shark. We just have to accept it. You know, it is unfortunate that this led to so much more, you know, fear of sharks. But, you know, if you think about it, it also resulted in a lot of people having renewed fascination with sharks. I think that a lot of people who study sharks now probably do so because they were inspired by Jaws and the kind of shark boom that it created. So, you know, pros and cons there. I think the only scene that I'm not terribly hip on, and this isn't even a negative, this is just the one scene where it doesn't quite work for me, is the scene with the dock where Quint and his I can't remember the character's name, but his helper, his assistant, are using the pot roast on the tire off the dock, and the shark grabs it and rips the dock off and kind of carries the dock out a little bit, and then the dock starts coming back around after the guy that fell into the water. It feels a little stupid. That's the one scene where I'm like, I don't know, this is really silly. And I think it's mostly just the image of the dock coming after the guy it's just so dumb. And I get the idea behind it. I just don't think it works terribly well. I think in the making of Jaws, Spielberg mentions that he had a different idea for the scene that they just couldn't shoot because of cost, where the shark is swimming through the harbor and you see the boats getting knocked, and so you get the sailboats kind of rocking side to side. That would have been so much better. That's my one kind of wish, is that we could have gotten that scene instead of the dock scene. That being said, minor quibble. It's not even that big of a scene, and it gets across the basic idea of the shark being very strong, which does come into play. So not necessarily a bad scene, just one that I did not care for as much as the rest of a movie that is basically perfect. There's also the amazing footage by Ron and Valerie Taylor, which was shot off the coast of Australia, that is perfectly utilized in the film, and it's one of those happy accidents. A lot of Jaws is a happy accident. This whole film famously, is predicated on this giant monster shark that once they put the model in the water, it just didn't work. All the hydraulics just started to take on seawater and just never worked. According to several people associated with the production, all of the scenes of the shark actually working are in the movie, and there's not a whole lot of it in the movie, so you can kind of figure how much time they wasted throughout the production with this mechanical shark. But they have all this footage shot in Australia by Ron and Valerie Taylor, who their whole thing was they got footage of sharks in the water, and there's this one scene, or one shot rather, of a shark just decimating this diver's cage. And the story basically goes that they had this little person who was going to go in the cage, this smaller cage, to make it look like a much bigger shark, as in the movie, 25-footer. And the little person was not particularly excited to get in the cage and was kind of dilly-dallying. And then the shark came by, this great white shark came by and got tangled up in the cage and wound up just destroying it. And you see that scene in the finished film, and it totally sells the idea of this shark that is aggressively huge, destroying this cage. If I'm not mistaken, that's also why they have the scene of Hooper swimming out of the cage and kind of hiding amidst the coral, is because they didn't have anyone in the cage. They needed a shot. They needed to match the shot, and so they added that in, which works perfectly for me. I do think that it would have been a really good idea to find some way of making it seem like Hooper had actually died and then bring him back. I think that would have worked a little bit better. Not in the way that Jaws 4 did it, but it would have been interesting to see, maybe, I don't know. I guess they really couldn't make it work because you see that there's no one in the cage, and that's such a great shot. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's so perfect that you have to really dig for these little problems you might have. So yeah, number one, it's Jaws, because it's fucking Jaws, and Jaws is amazing. Fucking everybody's seen it. If you haven't, go watch it. It's Jaws by the UHD. It's great. At number two, this is going to be a bit of a shocker, but just stay with me here. At number two, Jaws 3D. Yes, sir. Jaws 3D, directed by the production designer from the first film. It doesn't matter. Jaws 3D was the writer. It doesn't matter. Jaws 3D is a clusterfuck of a movie. Basically, the 3D trend was happening. They wanted to make a sequel to Jaws 2 because Jaws 2 was a success, and all the producers were like, money. And the folks at Universal, they didn't like the idea of doing a parody, which was one of the big initial ideas, was to do Jaws 3, People Zero, which would have been an all-out parody of the franchise, and I think was the better idea. I think Jaws 3, People Zero would have been amazing. Would it have been derided? Maybe. Would it have been like Halloween 3? Probably. But I think it would have been a much better idea, if only because this is one of the lamest franchises of all time. This is not a good franchise. It has a perfect starting movie and then just 3 bad movies afterward. But Jaws 3D is at very least fun. It is fueled almost entirely by Dennis Quaid's cocaine dealer. It's a film that has a lot of entertaining characters. It's a film with a lot of entertaining characters, yeah. But it is not one with a lot of depth. It is purely built as a thrill ride. And as a thrill ride, it has enough differences. There's no Amity. This is the only film that does not have any Amity footage in it. There's this very questionable way to bring in a Brody. I don't like at this point. Why even have the Brodies in the movies? But Dennis Quaid plays Michael Brody, and then I forget the actor's name who plays his brother Sean. But basically, Michael and Sean Brody. It's their little adventure because there was no way they're getting Roy Scheider back for these movies after part 2, and it takes place at SeaWorld, and Michael Brody works at SeaWorld for some fucking reason, and same old concept. There's the greedy guy who doesn't want to close the park, but in this case it's more he wants to utilize the shark, but then they get the shark, but it's not the right shark, and all this garbage. Plot doesn't matter. It's a very confusing, silly plot. A lot of it doesn't make a lick of sense. There's a lot of awful 3D effects, truly some of the most staggeringly shitty attempts at adding in 3D effects. I think my favorite is the tentacle that comes out and tries to grab the chick in the haunted cave thing that SeaWorld has for some reason, and it just sits there and it's like, I'm gonna go after a Japanese schoolgirl right after this shoot is done. It's so dumb, and in that stupidity is the brilliance of Jaws 3D. Jaws 3D is, again, not a good film, but it is very, very silly to the point that I honestly find it pretty entertaining. The final confrontation is very lackluster, but it does include that truly horrendous shot of the shark coming towards the glass and breaking through, and in the producers' minds, the audience going, "Ah!" And I don't think that happened. I think the audience reaction was probably something like, or it's not a good movie, but it is entertaining. And I judge movies more by the entertainment value than their quality when they get as bad as the Jaws sequels. Next up at number 3, and this is going to piss a lot of you off, but just again, stay with me. Jaws, The Revenge. That's right, Jaws 4, one of the worst goddamn movies of all time, a total cash grab. And I think, and that's what most people really have a problem with Jaws, The Revenge, is that it's such an obvious cash grab. It's so just so obvious. It was, I think I'm pretty sure if memory serves, they came with the concept, wrote it, shot it, edited, and got into cinemas in like 7 months. It was a complete, just botched film from the very beginning. And it's kind of fun for that reason. Here's the thing. All of these are cash grabs. And I'll get into it in a second, but like Jaws 2 was almost a more artistically inclined film, and then the producers was like, well, I want my wife in the movie a lot more. And, you know, I don't like that you fired my girlfriend. Oh, the footage is too blue, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we want more fun. We want to be happier. This film about a shark attack. And that fell apart, and it was all in the name of studio interest and money. And that's what this whole franchise has been since the first film, is money. And you know what? That's what all movies are really about, really, if you think about it. Most movies that you see, at least the ones with budgets, are about money. You know, it's an investment, and everybody wants to make their money back. And Jaws Revenge was yet another investment, poorly made, admittedly, but an investment nonetheless. I think the only person who was really happy about it was Michael Caine. And, you know, it doesn't make a lick of sense. It's ostensibly about Ellen Brody. Chief Brody is dead because they couldn't get Roy Scheider back, so he died of a heart attack because he was scared of the shark, I guess. And Ellen Brody, her son Sean, is brutally murdered off the coast of Amity because for some reason he is now a cop in Amity. I don't know why these people live in fucking Amity still, but whatever. He dies horribly and in a very stupid scene where I'm assuming the shark specifically put this log in place so that this specific police officer would have to go out and remove it so that he could attack in revenge. It's so dumb. And then, of course, where does Ellen go? This woman who is horrified by the water now? Well, to the Bahamas. Come on. That's the only place you can go. And to be fair to the movie, it is where Michael lives, and she doesn't want him to be there. But, like, bitch, move to the Midwest. Just move to the Midwest. I understand you want to be with your son in this time of mourning. He lives in the middle of the fucking ocean. Go to fucking Oklahoma. Goddamn. So she goes to Bahamas, meets Michael Caine's Hoagie, and so we get like this older people finding love storyline while Michael Brody is putting tracers on conch shells with his Jamaican friend and colleague, played by Mario Van Peebles. And it's just so outlandish. Why not just make another, like, just bring in some new characters in a different location, make it off the coast of fucking California, Oregon would be a great location. Make it Oregon-based, coastal town in Oregon, different kind of beach, another huge shark. Just bring in new characters. But no. For some reason, for some ungodly reason, these producers thought, no, we need the Brodies. The Brodies have to be in this. Is Lorraine Gray still acting? No, we'll get out of retirement. It's fine. And it's such a piece of shit. There's nothing really good about this film. It's more or less well shot, I would say, for the most part, except for the reshoots. It's pretty well shot. And I will say this, the shark attacks are better. They are not great, but they are, compared to the other sequels, better shark attacks. Nothing compares with number one. Obviously, Jaws is right up here. Revenge is somewhere off camera, and they're not good. The shark changes in sizes wildly. Like, it goes from a fucking giant shark to small enough to fit into an old ship that's sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and then at the end it is a fucking, like, it's fit to go up against Godzilla. So it doesn't make any sense, but the attacks are reasonably well shot. Editing helps a lot. It's a very choppy editing, but it works for this type of film, where in the other Jaws sequels, it's, a lot of the attacks are kind of slow and uninteresting. This at least has a kinetic energy to it. And then when you do see, like, big shark action, minus the ending is one of the most god-awful pieces of cinema you'll ever see. But, like, the beach scene where it attacks, I think like a banana boat or something, but it, takes that one woman under. It doesn't look great, but it is a fun kind of, sea level effect. And I think the shark looks pretty okay. It's a pretty derpy looking shark for the most part. It has this really dumb kind of blunt tail, but it looks pretty good in that scene. It's a pretty violent scene, so there's stuff there. You get a lot of shots of the shark, which is something, I guess. I would say it looks better than Jaws 2's shark. I know it might be, people might disagree with that. I don't really know what people think of Jaws 2's shark, but it looks better than Jaws 2's shark. I'm glad it doesn't have that stupid fucking scar. But it's a presence, and that's something. The fact that it's a presence, it's in the movie, I feel like it has more shark action than part 3. I could be wrong about that. I haven't timed it, but it feels like it has more shark action. And between that and the sheer ludicrousness of the plot and just how bafflingly awful the last 15 minutes are, like, it's like an art film. It's awful. It's truly, I can't stress this enough, it is a piece of shit. But it is so shitty that it is entertaining. Like, I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and they don't think it's so bad it's good. They think it's just bad. This is one of the few times where I would actually use the term so bad it's good, because it's definitely not a good movie. It is 100%. I am not laughing with it. I am laughing at it. It deserves to be derided, but I think that derision comes with a big old bucket of laughs. And so for me, is it good? No. Is it entertaining? Yes. Which I cannot say about my number 4 pick. You know what it is already. I've already basically spoiled it because there's only 4 fucking movies in the franchise. Jaws 2. Jaws 2 is, for me, an absolutely abominably boring fucking movie. I cannot stand watching Jaws 2, which is crazy because when I was a kid, I loved Jaws 2. I thought Jaws 2 was the shit. I got its scenes and scenes in Jaws confused. The whale scene specifically is very embedded in my memory. I took it super seriously. I thought it was so good. But a lot of that comes from, like, all the build-up to it, and the fact that I watched it kind of interchangeably with the original Jaws. I think that there is some pretty good build-up. I think that, again, I think the whale scene is really good. The boat scene is stupid, but it works in its own special way. But once you actually, like, get to the main plot and you get all the teenagers out on the ocean, first of all, it's way too late in the movie. At that point, it's gotten so boring. But once you get, like, they're not interesting. Those characters, they take Michael out of the equation real fast. So you're really just dealing with little Sean Brody, who's a small child, and then a bunch of teenagers who are incredibly uninteresting. Donna Wilkes is pretty good. She feels like she could have been a real scream queen if her career had gone that direction. Maybe she looked too young, but she was really good. Otherwise, just not interesting. Like, none of them are bad actors per se. It's just they're very uninteresting. They're underwritten. And you really just want to get back with Chief Brody. There's this weird thought process that the producers had where they needed to add more youngsters, I guess, for the youth demographic, which is insane because the first movie, which was a massive, massive, ungodly success, was about 3 middle-aged dudes hanging out, basically, and trying to catch a shark. That's basically what the movie is. All of the younger characters are barely characters. I mean, like, you have Chief Brody interacting with his sons and being a good father, which is great, but, like, they're not really primary characters. They're all supporting Chief Brody. You know, even like Ellen Brody is there to support Chief Brody. There's no reason for her to be a major character beyond what she needs to do. And of course, her role is extended here because she was married to a producer. And so, or actually head of the studio. But anyway, so her role is expanded. She's totally uninteresting. All these teenagers, they're totally uninteresting. Michael and Sean Brody, they're totally uninteresting. The only interesting character is Roy Scheider's Chief Brody, and he is not, he's like maybe in half the movie, and they spend the other half with these fucking kids and his fucking wife, and none of it is fucking interesting at all. And that's my problem with Jaws 2. It's incredibly uninteresting. Using a Gulf Coast beach, I know this is a me thing, but using a Gulf Coast beach in place of a northeastern coastal beach is insane. They look totally different. It does not look like a beach that would be in Amity. That's a quibble, I recognize that, but it does distract me to no end. It's just not how sand looks there. And here's the thing, like, even though Chief Brody is good as a character, and Roy Scheider is great, and you want to see more of him in this movie, even if his final, line to kill the shark is dumb as shit. Neither he nor Amity is necessary. You don't need these elements to make a Jaws sequel. There's no reason to have them. His character arc is done. Once he swims away at the end of Jaws, that's it. That's all you need for Chief Brody. He's done. He's good. There were a lot of good ideas for a sequel to Jaws. One of them was a prequel that took place on the Indianapolis and followed Quint. As much as I don't need a prequel for most characters, that's a good idea. Like, yes, we know the story, but that's a horrifying situation that could have been a great film. Instead, we got that shitty Nicolas Cage movie. But, it could have been a really interesting thing, like a pure adrenaline-based horror film with a bunch of dudes in the ocean getting picked off by sharks. That would have been like probably just like the last third act, maybe like, maybe midpoint on, something like that. Or maybe that could have been like the whole middle, and the third act would be them getting rescued and then dealing with the fact that most of their best friends and best mates and fellow soldiers are dead. All kinds of options. There's so many great options for a Jaws sequel or prequel, and what we get is a retread that is mostly very meh. It's kind of crappy versions of the good stuff from Jaws with a whole bunch of needless filler added on. It really shows how good of a director Spielberg is, because Jeanette Schwartz, bless him, does not do a very good job here, and I can't really blame him. Originally, James D. Hancock, who did Bang the Drum Slowly, he was going to make a much more artistically inclined film. It was going to be, Amity is in financial ruin, and it was a lot darker and more somber. And the studio didn't love the footage he was bringing in. And then he, as I said, he fired the girlfriend of a producer, and he didn't want to utilize Lorraine Gray more because she's fucking useless. And he eventually got fired. And when they replaced him with Jeanette Schwartz, the entire script was rewritten to be more like Jaws and to be more, I guess, cheerful. And that really was the death knell for this film. It became kind of a piece of shit. And where 3 and 4 are very, very overtly inept and silly and filled with little sort of memeable moments, Jaws 2's just kind of there. Like, there's not really anything terribly interesting going on. It's just a Jaws sequel. And there's not really much going on there. And that's too bad. Roy Scheider does put in a great performance, even though he didn't really want to be there. The direction is certainly capable. I wouldn't call it amazing, but it's capable. The shark doesn't look great. There's some good kills. The one with the kid getting dragged into the boat is pretty good. It could have been better. It could have been more violent, but it's a good idea for a kill and a good callback to the beginning of the first film. But it's like watching the version of Jaws if they hadn't hired Spielberg. And that's kind of just depressing. So in the end, yeah, Jaws 2, it's just as lifeless as a fake shark, and I just don't like it. So I wouldn't say I like any of the sequels particularly, but at very least, when I watch Jaws 3D, when I watch Jaws Revenge, I can have a good time. With Jaws 2, it's just me waiting for it to end. And so in my book, that means that Jaws 2 is the worst of the sequels. Go crucify me in the comments, guys. Tell me why I'm wrong. I will eventually have another video kind of going deeper into Jaws and Jaws 2. I do have a great idea for that video. So if that's something you would like to see and you'd like to see it sooner rather than later, also, please drop a comment below. I'm happy to hear about it. Of course, as usual, follow me on the Twitters and the Fosbooks and all the other social media sites that are constantly spying on you. And yeah. Thanks to all my patrons. Thanks to all my patrons. It's, as I've noted before, $3 a month gets you early access whenever I get videos done early, which not this video, and a bunch of other exclusive stuff. $10 patrons, you get access to our private Discord, which is hella tight, dog, and also various vlogs and non-movie related stuff. And yeah. I appreciate all those patrons so much. I appreciate all my subscribers. Please hit subscribe. Hit the little bell thingamabob. Make sure you get YouTube warns you that my videos are incoming. And I look forward to talking about my unpopular opinions again in the future. So until next time, go watch a movie. Donna. Dun 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 dun. Go watch a movie!